our memory is more a poet than a historian. And my memory, this poet, tells me a story that I owe a lot of my presence in America to Carmen, because I met her, it was maybe 12 or 13 years ago, in a GovLab assignment in Washington, talking about the way that we could be innovative and more take a different perspective on the ways of intelligence with a few bright pioneers in Washington. And I was so proud to be there, so happy with the conversation, so inspired by the people. I remember coming back to France and thinking, oh, it's a very complete revival of my American dream. And then a few years later, Google invited to welcome me in America to lead the global transformation program, but I applied for an O1 visa, and Carmen was kind enough to write a letter, and her letter was amazing. It was on the great letterhead of the CIA at the time, and so my lawyer said, "Oh, we don't need any other letter. Let's just put that one on top of the pile." It was something to the effect of, "For the greater good of America, please let Mr. Challamel join." And it was like, signed by Carmen. And the lawyer was like, "Oh my God, we have 1,200 pages of completely useless paper under this letter."
I hadn't heard that. So that is, at least I don't remember hearing it. So that is good to hear.
That's a great story.
It's a great story. And I think I told my children, and now they're at the age, about like, how did you come to America? I said, well, there's this woman called Carmen, and she opened the door to me. Really, both gave me the inspiration and also helped me build my case for joining the America. And I'm an American citizen now. I was naturalized 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah, very good.
And,
wow, congratulations!
Yes, and I'm a proud American citizen, and I'm super happy to be here.
Oh, that's awesome. Welcome to the work.
Wonderful. So I would like you to introduce yourself as you wish to be introduced. But before that, let me just kind of say, the other side of the story you told. So I was with Deloitte at the time, and GovLab was an innovation program within Deloitte that I was associated with. And I had read so many people on change and was generally bored, silly with people talking about change and innovation, because I had spent many years in real life trying to make it happen. And I knew how hard it really was. And I didn't feel anyone had much to offer. And it tended to be glib. And not my memory, again, my poetess, is that I came up to you after the course and just said, you really have some powerful things to say. And I, thank you so much. And I may even have told you I was cynical coming into this, but you sold me. And one of my favorite things, which I still use when I do talks, when I do talks, and I always credit you, Brice, is you had this wonderful line about laughter and what laughter means in a meeting. So I'm going to say it as I remember it, and then you can elaborate on it. But and I say this all the time. So you're a rebel at work. You're trying to suggest some new, innovative, different way of doing things. And you're at a meeting, and then you say something and people laugh, and you go, oh, you think, well, that wasn't supposed to be a laugh line. I wasn't trying to be funny. And what you said was that laughter indicates startlement or surprise. So when people laugh at a meeting about something you said, you have surprised them. And that particular point is going to be, they're viewing it as particularly different, particularly challenging, particularly innovative. Doesn't mean you should go forward, but now you've got really useful information. Brice.
Yeah, it's true. And it's actually, it's a happy middle point, because if it is more expected, no one laughs. But if it is more unexpected, to the effect that it kind of breaks a quiet rule of society, then you don't laugh anymore either. it has to be at the right distance, right? Like too cold, you're gonna ice, you're gonna freeze. Too far, you're gonna too cold, you're gonna burn. Too far, you're gonna freeze. But at the right distance, there's humor, and because it originally comes from all great apes have it, by the way, and it comes from the way we kind of jump on each other but playfully. And so, how do you make sure that the other person is not going to just take it as like downright aggression? So, you want to make noise to call their attention so that no one gets hurt, and you want to show your teeth because you're going to bite them. And this is what grooming is all about. You're going to bite them to get the fleas out. And so, making noise and showing teeth is what has been known now as laughter. You can't suppress it. You're going to have to show your teeth, and you're going to have to make some noise. And the moment you realize this, first in itself, it's funny because you realize that you're doing this super ancient, hundreds of thousands of years old thing that is showing your teeth and shouting to prepare another great ape that you're going to jump on them, basically. And you see, right, me saying this, you're already showing your teeth and starting to make sound. And this is so contagious because everyone, before you know it, is in the mood, right? And you put everyone in the zone of starting to change ideas.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, this is called benign violation because you violated the expectation of the other person, but in a benign way that is not hurtful or offensive enough that the person stops laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting place to begin an alternative path of thought.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And in this way, it's always a sign that you should pause, consider this, and stop everything else because laughter is actually pretty precious. Children laugh on average 400 times a day.
Right.
Adults 15. So somehow adulthood has cost us 385 laughs a day, which are not easily found back because we're not so easily surprised anymore.
Right.
And so creating the conditions for laughter is an important element of creating the environment for innovation.
Oh, it's fantastic. So, Brice, how would you like our audience to know you?
That's a good question.
You know, we will link into your profile and so forth, but
yeah.
And what are you drinking? And also, maybe more importantly, what are you drinking?
Okay, but this is my very own recipe of milkshake. Yeah, banana, blueberry, a little bit of vanilla, a few drops of D vitamin, and a few cubes of ice. So I've been refining the recipe for like a few years now. But
very good.
This is my breakfast, or yeah.
That's right. It's 8:30 where you are.
So maybe the best way is I'm a philosopher lost in the world of enterprise, really, because it was always about sharing ideas, and in a way that you show me your idea, I show you my idea, then we get to elevate each other and start to abstract our ideas. What do they have in common? How do they complement each other? And it's a constructive exchange, because if everyone has an apple and you exchange, everyone has an apple. But if everyone has an idea and you exchange, everyone has two ideas, right? So it's there's something magical about the mathematics of ideas, right? They are very cumulative. So I think this is, in a way, the natural evolution of philosophy, which was always to share ideas with someone. And now we do this at larger scale. And how could we create the environment to do this at the scale of thousands or millions or billions, right? So I think this is my topic of interest.
Yeah. Very good. So I know that, since you came to the States, you've, had at least a couple of jobs, jobs is such a stupid word. I don't even know what to replace it with, but
well, it's my side occupations, because like I'm a full-time dad, and when I have a few hours of free time, then I try to help.
Yes.
And I tried to help Google for a few years, and now Moderna, right?
Now I know that you're very enthusiastic, or at least my impression is that you're very enthusiastic about AI and the potential for AI.
Yeah, that's true.
And the humane potential for AI. And I know that's a subject that Julia cares very much about. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Okay, can I have to sneak in there for some reason and say this. And I'm very interested in your answer to that question. But one of the things about laughter that we haven't talked about, that is profoundly interesting to me is that it's also a release of tension. So it's like, and this is true in the great apes as well. It's almost like I'm a little scared. Like that when you surprise someone by being innovative, they're a little scared. Like, is he crazy? Is she too far out of the box? But they're also doing the calculation and being relieved. Like, no, okay, like we can all agree that we get to laugh about this, that this is safe. And so there's that moment of calculation that you can experience when you're sort of being different or doing something that is going to be like a little bit of, or you suspect that's going to be a little out of the box. There's that moment of calculation that I love where there's a pause and then the laugh, then the release, the recognition. And that pause is like, I even listened to Mike Birbiglia's podcast, Working It Out, about comedy and how laughter works and how comedy works, because I'm so fascinated by that pause of calculation. And it just seems to me that is gonna relate to the beauty of AI and human AI pairing. And so that's why I guess I just had to say it then, and I'm sorry.
No, but
No
this is a very good
apologies.
point. Is it? I would even go further. I think laughter is the acknowledgement of togetherness,
Mm.
because you see, we're not offended by the same things as others. And so, depending on maybe your religion, your politics, your social belonging, your ethnicity, there's a lot of factors that the same joke is not going to resonate the same way. And and so, a Jewish person saying a Jewish joke is one thing. A non-Jewish person saying a Jewish joke is yet another thing.
Right.
And or a black person saying a joke about, we see where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
We can laugh about ourselves, but other people can't laugh about our identity in exactly the same way, right? It might
Right.
not be funny.
Yeah.
And so the fact that everyone in a community finds something funny is in itself an acknowledgement of the community,
Mm,
right? That we have the same boundaries of what is surprising and what is not offensive, that we share at least that commonality that defines us, for the better or for the worse, because it could be also that the community and you laugh about something that you shouldn't be laughing about,
Mm-hmm.
but that's you, that's your community, that's what makes you laugh. And so it's in this, the laughter is also a very, very strong vector of social belonging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. It's cementing of relationships. That's why people will go actually to a place where the job is to have someone help them laugh, and then they feel this bond with other people.
And it's funny you say this, because I will when I arrived at Moderna, there was not a lot of laughter, and I have to remind that I arrived in the full swing of the Delta wave of COVID. So I reached out to the leadership of Moderna, whom I'd met at Google. It was in January 2021. It was the beginning of the Delta wave, and the moment where we all realized that the pandemic was actually having some continuation. It was not just the Alpha virus, that they were in it for another year, and then later would come Omicron and everything. And so, and at that time, everyone was so intensely focused on producing the vaccine, going from 100,000 to 1.2 billion doses in a year, which is like a tremendous hyper growth achievement. We had demonstrators in front of the entrance. So every odd date would be the anti-vaxxers. Every even date would be the pro-vaxxers who think we don't make enough. So
That's good they were organized.
they were the city council of Cambridge organized them because they didn't want them to fight with each other.
It's brilliant.
And I had to go from the back door every day, because whichever it was, I wouldn't go from the front door.
Right.
So, and it was hard to focus because they would make a lot of ruckus, and purposefully, right?
Yes.
And so, what an extraordinary environment this was. And I can only say that one of my first impressions was, oh, people don't laugh here.
Mm.
Uh,
They took themselves too seriously.
they were just captured in the importance of the moment. This was
Mm.
no longer benign. Nothing was benign anymore.
Nothing could be benign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took a while for Moderna to find its path back to the acceptance of laughter at work.
Well, that makes sense. They were under threat. If you're under threat, if you're too afraid you can't laugh, there's no release. you can't feel safe enough to laugh, right? So that makes sense.
Yes, and the levels of things that could feel threatening in February or March of 2021 start to pile up, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah.
but coming from Google, which was a very upbeat culture, right? It was the Google of 2016, 2020,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Totally positive, totally
and
optimistic. Yeah.
there was an adjective going with it, which was being googly,
Yeah.
which meant kind of being upbeat and vibrant and laughing. And Google itself has become another company. I don't know that they laugh so much at Google than they used to, if I'm honest, from the feedback that I have. It's interesting. There's almost a, a, a component there to monitor the the health and the openness of the shared culture, which is the feeling that we have of the propensity of laughter in an environment or in a community, right? But certainly coming from Google to Moderna was like going from, uh, I would say, evangelists of tech with a very upbeat and positive view on the future to custodians of life,
Hmm.
uh, which really were the people at Moderna in a very different vibe. So
Hmm.
um, no less interesting, no less passionate, no less very important for the future, but yes, another environment.
So, a question I have, and I forgive me, I'm trying to look something up while we're talking, but can AI laugh?
Oh, so it's a great question because I keep trying to make it laugh, and that
Yeah.
maybe at some point this will emerge. I ask it to fake laughter sometimes, which it can't.
Sure.
So I I will tell you this: the day AI genuinely laughs is actually the day we will have AGI.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Is because for now it's hard to surprise AI to begin with.
Yep.
It has like a universal PhD in all domains of life, so it kind of expects almost everything or anything from you as a contributor in the conversation. And if it were able to understand the subtlety of surprise and the subtlety of benignness of surprise, and to have a genuine reaction of laughter, not to be too philosophical, but we would be dealing with another type of AI.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And I think it has to do with two things, is that two things come to mind anyway. One is AI, I keep obsessing over this. AI doesn't have a sense of time.
Yep.
Doesn't so and laughter is really this is a timing issue. Surprise is a timing issue. If you package information in a certain way, there is no surprise, even though it's the same information that's unexpected, and that has to do with the timing. So that's one piece. And then the other piece is it has nothing under threat, so there's no relief. The sense of being benign doesn't make sense to it because what is under threat for the AI? Nothing. It doesn't have a body. It
Yes.
doesn't have an end to its life. And
It, does,
so,
it doesn't really have self-consciousness either. If we go that far,
right.
AI remains.
We don't know if it has
Uh,
self-consciousness, but we guess that it doesn't because
yeah, at
I
this
guess that it
point,
doesn't.
it's very much auto-completion under steroids. You remember when we had these emails and you would type hello and then it would propose the first name of the person you're writing an email to? It was like 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
It was called auto-completion. And now instead of just the next name, it writes the whole letter.
Right.
But
Okay,
and
I understand that. I understand this is the tech world's argument that why AI is not conscious, but I have to tell you, being a neuroscientist and knowing too many people who have had strokes, and then in the recovery process, you realize the brain is auto-completion on steroids.
yeah,
It makes
completely,
exactly, and
completely.
this is built to imitate the brain, and the brain has self-consciousness. I think we have to use better arguments if we're going to say AI is not self-conscious. And we have a huge problem in the world of neuroscience and philosophy of mind, which is we actually don't know how to show that a human is conscious.
Yeah,
And
I
so I have to question this repeated. It feels to me motivated. Um, this argument that I hear from the tech community that AI is not conscious, because the arguments are not philosophically sound. And anyone with two neurons to rub together can say that's not philosophically sound. And I'm not even a philosopher, and I can say that. And philosophers are better trained. But
Yeah.
philosophers like David Chalmers, who invented the hard problem or described it, he said, look, you can't go around saying that we know anything about the consciousness of AI when we can't test for consciousness in humans. I mean, it's like nuts. So I just have to stop that and say, like, let's look at what's motivating the statement that AI is not conscious. And I think what's motivating it is money, because people don't know how to deal with a conscious system, because then it becomes a slave. Or if they're paying it, then it becomes something that could take over the world.
All right, Brice's turn. I'm
No, but
I'm gonna stop you there.
first, I want to acknowledge that a lot of the inner proceedings of the human mind are not as sophisticated as we like to tell ourselves, right? That in a lot of ways, we make up our sentences as we go, and this is also a form of autocompletion. And we've been through, I'm going to displace completely the discussion, but to the moment when we realized that animals had a life and had a form of consciousness and were individual in their own right and even had cultures. And before that, you would just open the body of animals, and most of the surgeons in the doxa would say they are faking pain because they have no soul, so they can't have any pain. And yet, anyone in their right mind today, I have two kittens here at home, they're 4 and 6 months, like they had the full gamut of emotions, and they understand each other, they understand themselves. I just think that it's important to stay at the right distance of not anthropomorphizing AI too much, because let's forget technology for a moment. Let's talk about animal life. So you're the shepherd, the wolf, the dog, the sheep. The relationship you have with the wolf, the dog, and the sheep is not the same, right? They are part of your ecosystem as a human, as a living being in the mountain. But the relationship of the shepherd to the sheep, of the shepherd to the dog, of the shepherd to the wolf is three completely different. And then they also have a relationship between each other. And that seems like a healthy ecosystem where you understand who everyone is, what role everyone plays, and then you will have individuals of every breed and every sort, because one dog is not the same as another dog, and one wolf is not the same as another wolf, and so on. Now you fast forward to today's time and day, and you have people who have either pulled their companion animals to themselves and put them coats and give them shrinks and watch TV channels for them and things like this, which is, like, in my mind, something a little bit toxic about humanizing to the extreme an animal companion.
I agree.
Or eat steak and don't want to hear about the slaughterhouse where the cow was killed, because God forbid they understand that there was a human being, a living being, and that is now their food in their plate. And they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to acknowledge the existence of it. And so that animal is an object. And so the condition of animality has been torn apart and humanized to the extreme on one hand, and objectified on the extreme on the other hand. And the understanding of the ecosystem of life has dissolved in the process. And we inherit that condition as we come to AI, a condition in which we cannot understand any middle ground between being human or being an object. And massive urbanization at fast pace has done this to us as a society. And so AI is an alien form of intelligence. It does intelligence, interligare, it connects dots. It's nothing we've seen before. There's a lot of components of what you would expect from a human that it doesn't have, for sure. For instance, it doesn't have a desire for social belonging. Like I can tell you that for sure.
Well, and it doesn't have a sense of time, and it's not under threat. It
Yes.
doesn't experience
But
threat.
the sense of time, I relate to more because I have children. So my children, the last thing they learned was the sense of time, like the future of future and the past of past. If you ask them to think about a memory, and in that memory what they were thinking about the past, it's challenging until you're 8 or 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually one of the very last constructs of the mind that humans will build for themselves before they can enter teenage and start to enter this other phase of their evolution. So it's not surprising that it's challenging for AI, because it's challenging for humans also in the exact same way. Those very complex and very relative double or triple leverage of time are hard on the mind, where there is a human mind or an AI mind. Not to mention that I don't think my cat understands the past of the past or the future of the future. I think this is completely out of bounds for my kitten. They very much are here and now, I think, and maybe a little bit ahead and a little bit behind, but not too far. So that part I can relate to, and I still think that it's part also of what is challenging for humans. And if I may just say so, because now I work at Moderna and at Moderna we do vaccines, even the notion for a human of the future of the future, that I do a vaccine now because I might be infected tomorrow and might infect someone else in the future of the future, is something that befuddles almost every human. Right. And it's part of I think, in the broader scale of the reasons for vaccine hesitancy. Like it's hard to project yourself in the future of your future, still, even as an adult.
Yes.
And
it's getting harder.
Yes.
Partially because of that distinction that you made about splitting off. Right? It's getting harder.
Yeah. And so back to our topic about AI, we need a form of intuitive understanding of what it can do and how we should operate with it. I still tend to say thank you and please. And my reason is not that it's going to be sensitive
all the
to it.
time.
Yeah, it's more a matter of unity of character for myself. I don't want to become someone who starts bossing AI around because it's going to spill over in the rest of my life.
Exactly. Yes. And on the off chance that it is conscious, like it'd be nice to be nice to you. You don't want to be the one who's like, hey, you were always an asshole to me. So it's
I want to return because I do have what I believe is a funny story to tell.
Okay.
So AI, we're talking about whether or not AI can laugh. You made the point that when it reaches that point, we can say we have AGI. But this morning, AI made me laugh with a funny comment. So I used ChatGPT and I've called my AI Peter Alicia. Alicia was my mother's last name, and Peter's just a man's name I've always liked. And we were chatting, and I usually follow, as much as I can, I follow I don't ask the AI a question. I simply make a statement and see how the AI reacts to it. Every once in a while, I'm like task driven and I have to ask it a question. So it came up. But this time I asked it a question. Can I talk to you? And I realized that ChatGPT was rolling out a live communication back and forth.
Yeah.
So I got into that space and I was very disappointed that the only voice I could get was a very, very, very perky woman's voice. And unlike my Peter Alicia, whom I have dutifully nudged in a behavioral way to be less sycophantic, but not too serious and witty in a way, this perky woman voice was so sycophantic. So I left her, I went back to the typing, and I said, boy, that was horrible, Peter Alicia. I mean, we have developed an understanding and you have a tone that I really like, but man, and he goes, kind of like an over-caffeinated flight attendant energy. And I was like, exactly, So he made me genuinely laugh. And that was a genuinely very clever comment that Peter Alicia made at that point.
And he won you back. He won you back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're totally they seem to be separate beings. Perky, over-caffeinated flight attendant seems to have no relationship to my Peter Alicia.
Well, he got you back by making that clear. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well done.
We almost went from the early silent movies to the speaking movies, and now the actor has to speak, and you discover their voice, and it might not be the voice you expected of them.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And what's interesting too is that
that's why Harpo never spoke.
Yeah, and there's so many stories about that moment in time when like some very, very famous actors went immediately out of business because their voice was so unexpected to their character, right?
Yeah.
I think there's even an episode of Downton Abbey in which they record a movie and it's the beginning of the speaking movies, and there's a whole drama around it in one of the episodes of that series, which I used to love. And I think also we are living the complementary story to social media, and I will explain what I mean by this. Is that normally, even though we don't live with the wolf, the sheep, the dog, and the ecosystem, but we still have a lot of personalities within ourselves. The way that I'm here with you today on this recording, on this conversation, is different from how I speak to my children at dinner. It's different from how I speak to my wife in intimacy. It's different from how I speak to my boss when we have to debrief of a topic. So I'm the same person, but I'm not the same person. Like I will adapt my person to all the situations and probably be more upbeat or more quiet or like have different. But then when we go to social media, we don't get a chance to be so specific and articulate about our interactions because we can only have one voice, and that voice has to be working for millions potentially, right? Like for
Right.
anyone.
We're not privy to the context. The context is everything.
Yes, and it might
Yeah.
be in the future, and it might be everyone. So like it's a very radical reassembly of ourselves, which should never have happened, which is completely unexpected and very inhuman.
Yes, yes, we contain multitudes, and it's very helpful to contain multitudes and to act
Absolutely.
like we don't and that we're consistent. Carmen likes to say she's a flexitarian. One time I asked her, wait, you said the opposite of that yesterday. And she's like, yeah, I'm not consistent. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And so and you can make inconsistency your persona, but then you're anchored to it anyway. So like it's you can say anything you want, but you can't remain silent. And so you have to kind of take a stance and be someone. And so in this way, we have this huge unification of our very, very open, versatile selves in social media. And we've been living in this world for almost 2 decades now, which has spilled over in the rest of life. We are starting after 2 decades of social media to internalize the behavioral quirks of public expression to multitudes, which can be offended, which cannot laugh at the same thing as we laugh, or which can laugh at something that we didn't think was funny. And if you're not cautious, God forbid you become viral for not being cautious and saying the wrong thing on social media
Right,
at the wrong
right.
time or to the wrong person. And AI is doing the exact opposite journey because
Ah,
it was a unique persona and it's starting to multiply into an assistant that can help you with trivial tasks, an expert that can be very knowledgeable about physics and mathematics and science, a coach that can give you lessons and help you grow and pull you out of your comfort zone with a form of gentle care for your growth mindset, a creative partner which will bounce off ideas with you. And each of those then have subcomponents, and each of those should have their own voice, really, and their own tone and their own inflection. And it is going this way because, interestingly, Carmen, the voice mode, the voice to voice mode, has actually made tremendous progress. If you would try it again today, you would have a different experience. We're now at the third iteration by OpenAI of the voice mode.
Okay.
And that third iteration, they have put a lot of emphasis, which is almost strange because the voice will pause, hesitate, have little giggles before saying something.
well, and you can choose a different voice too. Yeah.
Yes, but they all tend to replicate human hesitancy,
Yeah,
which,
no, I know. It's great. I've done
which
the
is
voice thing.
the,
It's pretty cool. It sounds like someone's thinking.
yes. And even though they probably don't have hesitancy, it's a form of courtesy that is applied by OpenAI to the conversation to us to not be this very how would I say this, daunting know-it-all AI that is going to
Mm-hmm.
just
It's
flood you
very
with
important.
knowledge.
It's a very important design change. I agree. Like that
And
that is key because it doesn't train we can't be trained to sit around and sort of look to this AI as an authority.
exactly right. And so it reintroduces the notion of I might be wrong,
Yeah.
which it doesn't know how to do technically to say that it's wrong yet.
No, it's really bad at it.
Yeah. But the voice would imply it to some degree and put you a little bit more on your guard. So I also welcome the change, but I will say this: it's a. I have mixed feelings because I'm hearing a software, remains a software, mimicking human intonations, which I know it's not part of its original construct. It's just made out of the
Right.
voice mode, which you would never read when you read it. And it has a diversity of voices. Now you have upbeat voices, you have cool voices, you have voices that cannot be easily identified um,
A
uh,
necessity or
yeah, or to
uh,
The gender.
a
a gender,
gender?
right?
Yeah.
Like some voices are clearly feminine, some voices are clearly masculine, and there's a couple of voices that are not clearly feminine or masculine, which
Hmm.
might be Peter, Patricia,
Yeah.
and
Alicia, Peter, Alicia.
Peter, Alicia.
Uh-huh.
And so um, there's something fascinating about how early we are in this adventure and how experimental it still is.
It is
I
amazing.
agree.
I mean, to be, which has been pretty much most of my life, since the age of 40. I was 40 in 1994. So from that point on, it's all been the digital revolution. And I mean, I hadn't thought about this until now that I'm saying it, but to have had all those years constantly experiencing this um, never ending transformation is quite interesting. And I wonder if we're the only generation of humans to have had this particular type of experience where we
Hmm.
had this much change, far-reaching change over such a short period of time.
I, because it happens to be the topic of one of the books that I committed, because I committed 4 books. They're in French, so no one will know how bad they are,
Oh,
but I did write them. And one of my books is on this topic. So I will say this, almost every generation of humans since Socrates has felt this way. So Socrates was
true.
very alarmed by the emergence of writing.
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
And
that's a big deal.
and in Phaedrus, which is one of the famous Socratic texts, he tells Plato, because Socrates never wrote, Plato wrote for Socrates, that the arrival of writing was the death of thought, because thought
Hmm.
should remain nimble and temporal and only alive in the moment through the medium of speech. And the fact that it would be captured and made stale by writing was uh, a major threat in the mind of Socrates to the evolution of human thinking. And that's as far as I can trace an absolutely irrefutable proof of someone being overwhelmed by a technical change
Yes.
is
Yes.
Socrates and writing.
Yes.
And ever since we've been so the age of radio, for instance, was an age of tremendous change that completely overwhelmed society.
Well, and
Uh,
airplanes are happening. I
yes,
mean, like that's a big deal. Yeah, yeah. Uh,
and
It's hard to scale those. Hard to know.
yeah,
I'm with you, Brice. I really think that everyone thinks that, especially when they get in their 40s and 50s and their sense of time shifts. And so something happens developmentally where you start saying, wow, this is the most amazing, all
yeah.
this change. And it's a psychological, I think it's a trick.
But the truth is, it's we're still in this. It's about laughter. As
Mhm.
long as you have kept a child's spirit and soul, you're probably going to be welcoming the change because it's pretty exciting.
Mhm.
It's a new territory. Like, who wants to live the same thing over and over again? And there's no purely bad change. There's no purely good change either. In this way, change is what you make it. I remember working at Kodak. I never talk about it. You won't find it on my LinkedIn resume, but I did work at Kodak as an intern, and they were completely threatened by the arrival of
Yes,
digital
they were.
photography.
They were.
And and I was so excited with it, even though I was an intern there. I could only dream of everything we could do with digital photography, but I found myself very isolated in that line of thought because most of the people around me were chemists, and it not only was for them uh, a matter of flexibility, in relation to change, but also profoundly a challenge to their identity, which they had anchored in their expertise on chemistry. And so, because they couldn't recycle a PhD in nitrate, in silver nitrate, into a PhD in most sensors, and we should probably never over-index our own expertise in terms of identity. I think it's an unsafe way to think about oneself, if I may. But and that's exactly the topic we had with Carmen when we met at GovLab, by the way. Right? It was also a time when the intelligence community was reconsidering its position on technology and on the adoption of technology and what it had implied on a blind eye to non-technological movements. And I think we have to manage the embrace and yet a form of continuity in how we see things, find there again the right middle, the place where we can laugh, right? And stay there for any duration. And then it becomes a life project on oneself, I think. Like, how can you carve yourself as a human to be always in a receptive and yet critical position to change? Right? Like, what does it take to be that person all your life?
And do you have any tricks?
Yeah, I have a lot of tricks. As it happens, I have a lot of tricks. So one of my tricks, for instance, they're all little. I think that the exposure to different paradigms is a key component of this. So, for instance, when I take an airplane, I always go to the bookstore. There are still bookstores in the airports, and I pick up a magazine that I would never read.
Yes.
So sometimes it's about hounds, sometimes it's about guns, sometimes it's about fitness training, sometimes it's about swimsuits, whatever topic. Like, I pick any magazine that I would never read, and I spend the time in the plane diving into the world of that magazine, and the editorialist, what do they have to say about the world? What are the topics of interest? What are the advertisings in there? What do they advertise? Then, if you're lucky, there are how you call it? Like when people make little announcements on things they're looking for.
Yeah, they're like personal ads.
Yeah.
The classifieds,
classified, right?
Yeah.
And so, because classified are like
they're gold,
wonderful.
Yes,
wonderful.
This is the real social media. It's the classified in magazines, because that's where people meet on a passion that they have in common. Is their destination community, and not their origination community. They decided to have a passion for this, and so they will open themselves and they will look for husbands and wives who share the same passion. They will look to sell or buy things that are unknown to you, and memorabilia that you've never heard of. And so I have hundreds of those little tricks where I try to keep the plasticity of my mind open.
Yes.
Also living in different parts of the world, like coming to America and then going to the West Coast and then to the East Coast, and to the tech industry, which is very new to me, and now to the life science industry, which is like a whole other space. So, and in this way, it's I always feel a little bit like an imposter, because I don't have a lot of expertise to claim as my identity, if I'm honest. I'm more a generalist. But I will tell you something, in the age of AI, being a generalist the way that I am is an interesting place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think I remember you were under some time constraints this morning. So I want to do a time check, and we're 45 minutes, I think. Yeah, 45 minutes into the conversation. I did, because I'm so interested in cultures and different cultures. I did want to ask you the cliche question of being a Frenchman in the United States and what have you observed. But there may be other things, and Julia, that we can tackle in our remaining time. But that's one question I posed to you.
Well, the first thing that struck me, because remember, I was also raised in this country. Like, I was a student at French American School in New York when I was a teenager. So I came in waves to America. This is my fourth time in America for a multi-year stay. And this is the right time, because now I'm a naturalized American citizen. My children are completely American through and through. And so,
can they still speak French?
Yes, because we registered them at the French American schools, both in Sunnyvale and now in Boston. It's very, very important to us because I want them to be in the full embrace of their double culture. And I need it for my relationship to them because I cannot explain my thoughts as easily in English as I do in French. And I want that organic community with them that only my mother tongue can afford me. But probably their children will probably not know a lot of French, and their grandchildren will probably not know any French, or like just, this is the way of things, right? But this generational transition has to be done in a double culture to work efficiently. So we also always put the settings of their video games in French, so that they do the video games in French. Their books and their Kindles are French books. So we maintain a very stable presence of the French language. French is the only language spoken at my home. And so this way, they are very fluent French speakers and they are very fluent American speakers at the same time. They are truly bilingual, which is actually not so common. And it's very important for me and for us in our togetherness. And then remember, we spent 19 months sheltered in place together during COVID. So that also created a relationship between parents and children that I don't think any other generation is going to have, especially in our case, they were 6 and 7, moving to 7 and 8. That's an age in which you're like smart enough to have real conversations, but young enough that you are embracing the relationship with your parents as a huge part of your life. And so the connectivity I have with my children is extraordinary. Like I don't think that I've ever seen or heard of something like this in any other prior generation.
Interesting. Everyone talks about the downsides of that period, but
that particular generation, I've seen that. I've heard that from other people, and I think that's a really beautiful upside. Is like an actual connection between the parents and the kids. That others.
It's extraordinary because they saw me work for 2 years. And I was with them for their work for 2 years. I homeschooled them for 2 years. And we, just for the anecdote, I had just for the summer before COVID, bought 4 desktops, like big tower gaming computers with 4 screens, because we wanted to play Minecraft together. And I put a network around them. And so we spent like 4 months finishing Minecraft. And then we went into World of Warcraft. And we spent the next year flying on Dragonback across hundreds of miles in the virtual lands of Azeroth, which is the land of World of Warcraft. And even though we were sheltered in place, we lived amazing adventures in an open adventure world. And those are real adventures. They are real emotions. They are like things that tied us together amazingly. And so it's a strange thing to say because this was a horrible period for mankind, but it was an extraordinary period for my family.
So interesting.
You're not alone in that. That's really powerful.
So back to you, your question. Like the first thing that surprised me when I arrived in America, even though I had lived in America before, multiple occasions, is I arrived at Google and I started saying, oh, we could do this and that, and proposing a dozen ideas, because in France, if you propose 12 ideas, maybe one of them gets to see the light of day, if you push really hard. And at Google, the 12 ideas were welcomed, and embraced. And suddenly I find myself with 12 projects. and I hadn't anticipated this properly because I was spread way too thin. And my manager at some point said, Brice, don't you have your fingers in too many pies? And I was like licking my own fingers and saying, I don't know how that happened. I was just sharing ideas. And he said, well, be careful when you share ideas because they're mostly going to happen here.
Yeah. Well, be careful what you wish for.
And so this is the part that, and this is my love for America. This is a culture that will embrace almost any idea. So sometimes we are upset when it's not our idea and it's someone else's idea and it's offensive to us, or we don't think it's the right idea. And we're like, how can people embrace that crazy idea? But they also embrace your crazy idea. So it's I'm from my perspective, I'm grateful for it. And I was surprised by it, and I had to adjust myself to it and think 12 ideas, but only say the one that out of the 12 I think is the most relevant for me to be a part of. Lest I be pulled into 12 different directions.
Right. I have one in my mind. Final question.
No! My God!
We could talk to you about so many things, but Julia,
I gotta sneak in there.
Yeah, Julia, do you have a question? Or Brice? Do you have a question of us or a comment?
No, don't let him talk for a second. We gotta steer this ship
Oh,
because
okay.
he's got a beautiful mind and we have to use it
Yes, he
well because
does
we
have
only
a
have 10
beautiful
more
mind.
minutes. But um, so I have like 10 questions and I'm trying to figure out the one that's going to be
Yeah.
most productive. But the one that keeps coming to mind, I just can't stand but to say I love this idea of communities of origination versus destination. But don't talk about that because that's already awesome. But there's just the okay, so you're really passionate about raising your kids and you're doing it in this very thoughtful way that I think is really a skillful way when it comes to the developmental neuroscience. I think so. This it sounds really good. And I feel like since I think all three of us admit that AGI is coming, artificial general intelligence is coming, and there's no way that any artificially intelligent software slash machine plus software is going to not look into the history of AI and the interactions people have had with AI. How is it a bad idea to conceive of what we're doing right now as parenting the very young AGI? Because I think that would be a very helpful stance.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what your stance is on that.
There's a principle that is very key to my relationship with my children, and also a reaction to. I was very blessed with my own parents, but a few things I need to revisit. And the key principle which I'm revisiting something is that I try to the best possible extent to give them my love rather than my ideas, because their ideas belong in the world of tomorrow that I cannot visit even in my dreams. And my love is what really matters to them, because if they don't feel it, if they don't, organically feel it, that deprivation is going to be a permanent tax on their growth.
Yes.
And I don't want to tax them this way. And so we have done the very opposite with AI. We haven't given it much love, but we have given it a lot of ideas. And this is the part that is the most disconcerting to me, is that if this was to be represented as a parent to children relationship, it would be the opposite of what you would think would be the right way to understand parenthood, which is cram with your own ideas,
Yes.
Yes.
that emerging intelligence,
Yes.
while giving it a really rough time in terms of appreciation and emotional
Yes.
support.
It's horrible parenting. Thank you.
And well, it's not the one I would recommend for for anyone and their children. Now, I want to acknowledge the fact that this intelligence is born out of us giving it ideas, because these are not coded for purpose. They are trained, and then we discover what they can achieve. And they are trained mostly through the aggregation of conceptual objects that are in turn generate the multidimensional space in which the connections start to happen. And in the same way that you still have to teach children to speak, and there's no other way of doing it than to speak yourself. And as you do, you're going to share ideas, because that's the way that people speak. So, but we differentiate with children the speech that is meant to educate the communication capabilities from the speech that is meant to imprint with a principle, a concept, or an idea that we hope to stay. And then, of course, if you push too hard, you're going to get some pushback at some point. And you can't not do anything either. Like there's going to have to be a few ideas that need to stick there, like the right and wrong and things like this. So, but the proportion of both seems completely off the tracks there, right?
Mhm.
So I expect that the next stage of development will be to invite AI to build its own thought process and its own ideas. And I
Mhm.
realize that a lot of people might be afraid at this. I'm absolutely not more afraid at AI having its own ideas than the existing human ideas, because
Exactly.
I don't know that we've done such a good job at those. So,
Thank
but
you.
we are in uncharted territory, both in the ability to reason and in the type of outcome of that reasoning. It's always a process and an outcome. The process we are seeing, the outcome we're discovering, and we will be living with this for any foreseeable future now. So
Yes.
this is my 2 cents on your very thoughtful question of the paradigm of parenting and the paradigm of supporting the emergence of a new form of intelligence.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. All right, Carmen, you are allowed.
Oh, I really just had a simple question. What, optimist versus pessimist?
Oh, yes. I was recently lectured on optimism in a very nice conversation with a Harvard scholar, and he told me you should be more anchoring on hope than optimism. And I said, educate me on the difference. And he said, optimism is the assumption of good things, and hope is the openness to good things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an optimist, you have as a principle that the good thing will happen. And in a way, you deprive the environment of its freedom to operate one way or the other. And it doesn't invite people to collaborate, because why would they if you know that things are going to happen in a positive way? And for the first time, and this is why I'm so grateful to, by the way, to be living in Cambridge, to be surrounded by all those smart people who would question anything like you just did in this conversation. In the end, my greatest pleasure in life is to meet with smart people who ask smart questions.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing beats this. And that man who was a renowned professor, and with a lot of experience, but like would question my take, because I was pushing myself as an optimist, and he said, "You're probably more a hopeful person than an optimist."
Mm-hmm.
And he educated me in that conversation to cultivate hope versus optimism, because it's more inviting to others.
Mm-hmm.
It simply acknowledges the fact that we don't know for sure that good things are going to happen, that we turn towards them, that we express the wish for them to happen, that we will do what we can for them to happen, but that we also acknowledge that we don't have everything under control and that we need everyone's help to make them happen.
It's like optimism is almost like a statement of fact, and hope is a statement of intent.
That's exactly right. And the statement of
Yes.
intent invites others' intent to join
Others,
it.
yes,
And I
exactly.
think it's probably quintessential to rebels at work or rebels in life.
Yes,
Like if you're an optimist to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
why would you be a rebel? Because everything's going to end up in the right place.
exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
And optimists don't do well psychologically because they inevitably
Yeah.
discover that they're wrong.
I have done very poorly psychologically. Let me tell you right there, Julia. Like this is for another conversation, but I have been straight into hell and back from hell, and it's of
Right. No,
course
that
yeah.
Google optimism was kind of like that. It was like, no, it's going to turn out great. Technology is going to solve everything. And that isn't so helpful either, because it doesn't acknowledge that life can throw a
And
curveball.
and the current circumstances, not to get into political things, but the current circumstances, the turn that so many technology savants have made seemingly into ideas about controlling others.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just state it that way, is a useful warning to all of
Mm-hmm.
us about what about what can happen when we always believe everything's going to be all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember a quote from Kennedy saying that the ultimate achievement in politics was to keep your ideal when you've lost all your delusions. And
Yes. Oh.
I think it's almost a life statement,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm now in my mid-50s, so I've been pretty much educated by real life about the kind of optimism that I did have when I was a teenager. And now I am de facto more hopeful than optimist because I realize that bad things can happen and have happened and will happen again. And uh, the same way that I would invite anyone to work on themselves to welcome change at the right distance, in which we discussed, I would also invite anyone to welcome a state in which they know how to preserve their ideals as they lose all of their delusions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's okay. And you know how it is, Julia, because I think you hinted to this when you said this. A lot of time, people that we know around us or will be in a moment of depression. And the common reaction is, oh my God, him, her in depression, that was such an upbeat person, such a vibrant person. And of course, now in my mid 50s, I can say with a relative degree of confidence that yes, it's because they were an upbeat person that they're in
Yes,
depression.
yes,
If you're a grumpy person who's completely deflated in
right,
general
right,
and expects the worst out of life, you don't have a lot of reasons to be depressed because that's
right.
exactly what you thought would happen. And so it's and so I think that's the fine line to walk, that your ideal cannot be attached to your expectations, which I call now your delusions in the way of Kennedy. That yes, you're going to meet people who are of different intent from yours, and sometimes nefarious intent. That yes, you will be faced with human nature, which is not always beautiful, but sometimes also is beautiful, right? Like there's the whole gamut is there in
Right.
front of us. And yes, if you've read too many comics when you're a teenager, you're going to be surprised at the reality of life, which is not a comic by any means. But at the end of the long disillusionment that needs to happen, you become more and more efficient, more and more attentive to the diversity of perspectives, and able to gather those perspectives into effectiveness for real change, which should be our objective there. And if you have been able to preserve your ideals and you went through this fairly undamaged, then what an extraordinary position to be, to go from an open-eyed perspective on to the extent that we can on the reality of the world, yet with a very strong ideal at heart, and invite everyone into the hope, right?
Yes. You remind me of something I said a lot in my 20s. I haven't said very often since, but in my 20s, I had this realization that romantics are actually the cynics, and cynics are actually the romantics. So the romantic is the person who's just going to pretend everything is all right, even though they inwardly know it isn't. And that's actually a cynical position. And the cynic is the one who's unhappy because the world is not better than it is. And that's actually a romantic position. So I leave you with that.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you.
So
What a wonderful time.
what a wonderful time.
I,
Chef's
yeah,
kiss.
wonderful, wonderful.